and by degrees I fell back into a considerable degree of security, though I still attended secret prayer. About the 15th of April, 1733, I relocated from my father's house to East Haddam, where I spent 4 years, but still I was without God in the world. However, I sometimes practiced secret religious duties. I was not much addicted to the company and the amusements of the young, but this I know, that when I did go into such company, I never returned with so good a conscience as when I went. It always added new guilt, made me afraid to come to the throne of grace, and spoiled that satisfaction I took in my good character with which I habitually pleased myself. But what rotten horror! All my good self-conceptions were but self-righteousness, not founded on a desire for the glory of God. About the end of April 1737, being full 19 years of age, I relocated to Durham to work on my farm and continued about 1 year, frequently longing after a liberal education. But when about 20 years of age, I applied myself to study and was now engaged more than ever in the duties of religion. I became very strict and watchful over my thoughts, words, and actions. I concluded that I must be sober indeed, because I designed to devote myself to the ministry and imagined that I did dedicate myself to the Lord. Sometime in April 1738, I went to live with Reverend Mr. Fisk of Haddam, and continued with him during his life. I remember he advised me wholly to abandon young company and associate myself with grave elderly people, which counsel I followed. My manner of life was now wholly regular and full of religion, such as it was, for I read my Bible more than twice through in less than a year, spent much time every day in prayer and other secret duties, gave great attention to the word preached, and endeavored my utmost to retain it. So much concerned was I about religion that I agreed with some young persons to meet privately on Sabbath evenings for religious exercises, and thought myself sincere in these duties. And after our meeting was ended, I used to repeat the discourses of the day to myself, recollecting what I could, though sometimes very late at night. I used occasionally on Monday mornings to recollect the same sermons, had sometimes pleasure in religious exercises, and had many thoughts of joining the church. In short, I had a very good outside, and rested entirely on my duties, though I was not sensible of it. After Mr. Fisk's death, I proceeded in my studies with my brother, was still very constant in religious duties, often wondered at the levity of professors, and lamented their carelessness in religion. In this way I proceeded a considerable length on a self-righteous foundation, and should have been entirely lost and undone, had not the mere mercy of God prevented it. Sometime in the beginning of winter, 1738, it pleased God one Sabbath morning, as I was walking out for secret duties, suddenly to give me such a sense of my danger and the wrath of God that I stood amazed, and my former satisfaction I took in my good character presently vanished. From the view which I had of my sin and vileness, I was much distressed all that day, fearing that the vengeance of God would soon overtake me. I was much dejected, kept much alone, and sometimes envied the birds and beasts for their happiness, because they were not exposed to eternal misery, as I evidently saw that I was. In this way I lived from day to day, being frequently in great distress. Sometimes there appeared mountains before me to obstruct my hopes of mercy, and the work of conversion appeared so great that I thought I should never be the subject of it. I used, however, to pray and cry to God, and perform some other duties with great earnestness, and thus hoped by some means to make the case better. Hundreds of times I renounced all pretenses of any worth in my duties, as I thought, even while performing them, and often confessed to God that I deserved nothing for the very best of them but eternal condemnation. Yet still I had a secret hope of recommending myself to God by my religious duties. When I prayed affectionately, and my heart seemed in some measure to melt, I hoped that God would be thereby moved to pity me. There was then some appearance of the goodness in my prayers, and I seemed to mourn for sin. I could in some measure presume upon the mercy of God in Christ, so I thought. Nevertheless, my most dominant thought was that the foundation of my hope was some imagination of goodness in my meltings of heart, the warmth of my affection,